The park had been closed for so long that people forgot what it used to sound like. But I remember. I remember the cotton candy machine hissing like steam. I remember the mechanical clank of the roller coaster climbing the first hill. I remember the carousel music drifting over the parking lot as the sun went down. And I remember the Ferris wheel. It was the tallest thing in town. When you rode it at night, you could see every streetlight, every rooftop, every quiet backyard. You could see the river bend around the trees like something silver and alive. 15 years ago, there was an accident. That's the word they used, accident. One teen fell from the top cabin. The ride malfunctioned. The park closed 2 weeks later. That's the official story. But no one remembers the name of the boy who fell. Not anymore. That should have been the first sign. We went there on a dare. 4 of us. Late August. The kind of heat that lingers after dark and makes everything feel restless. Daniel was the one who suggested it. He'd been different lately. Distracted. Quiet in a way that didn't fit him. Like he was listening to something no one else could hear. "Let's just see it up close," he said, just once. The fence was easy to slip through, too easy. The air inside the park felt still, no insects, no wind. Even our footsteps sounded absorbed, like the ground was swallowing the sound. The booths stood in rows, their painted prizes faded and staring. The roller coaster tracks were rusted skeletons. The carousel was covered with a tarp that had torn down the middle. And the Ferris wheel? It was moving. Slowly, quietly. Not creaking, not grinding. Just turning. The lights along its rim flickered weakly, yellow and sickly, like tired eyes struggling to stay open. None of us spoke. Daniel stepped forward first. The closer he got, the louder the hum became. Not from the motor, from everywhere, from the air itself. The cabins swayed gently as they rotated, empty until they weren't. I didn't notice when it changed. 1 second, they were hollow shadows. The next, shapes sat inside them, still facing outward, watching. Daniel didn't hesitate. He walked to the base of the wheel. The ladder that led up to the operator's platform lowered on its own, slowly, smoothly, inviting. "Daniel," I said. My voice felt small. Wrong. He turned back toward us and smiled. It wasn't exaggerated, it wasn't monstrous, it was calm. Too calm. "Do you hear it?" he asked softly. "Hear what?" "The music." There was no music, only the hum, but his eyes looked distant. Like he was already somewhere above us. He climbed. Every step he took made the wheel seem taller, the sky darker, the park around us smaller. When he reached the top cabin, the door opened from the inside. He stepped in. The door closed. The Ferris wheel stopped. All the lights flared brighter, and every silhouette in every cabin turned their heads toward us at the exact same time. The hum deepened. The Ferris wheel spun violently, too fast, too sudden. Metal screamed. The lights burst brighter, and then silence. The wheel stopped. Daniel's cabin reached the top again. The door hung open, empty. We ran. 2 days later, something changed. The town newspaper archived an old article online. The accident from 15 years ago. The headline now read, "2 teens fall from Ferris wheel." Daniel's name was listed, dated 15 years ago. His birthday was wrong. His school photo, older than it should have been. His parents suddenly spoke of what happened back then. My memories blurred. I struggled to picture his face clearly. Sometimes I couldn't. The park hadn't just taken him. It had rewritten him. And when I drove past the park one night, I saw the Ferris wheel turning slowly in the dark. Every cabin filled, except one, at the top, waiting. My sister didn't believe in haunted places. Not really. Not the way people in this town wanted you to believe. Like evil was a thing that lived in a specific building, behind a specific door, waiting politely for someone to step inside. She believed in grief, though. She believed in the way reality could bend around a loss, until it didn't feel like reality anymore. Daniel's disappearance didn't make sense, and worse. Over time, it began to make too much sense, like the world was editing itself to make his absence look normal. At first, it was subtle. People stopped saying his name in conversation, not because they were cruel, but because it slipped away from them mid-sentence. Our mother would begin a story. "Remember when Daniel," and then pause, her brow furrowing, as if the memory had been erased at the exact moment she reached for it. Then the town newspaper changed. My sister found the article by accident at 2:13 a.m., deep in the county archives online. The headline was old, yellowed even on the screen. "Teen falls from Ferris wheel. Amusement park closes after tragedy." She clicked it, expecting nothing. The name was wrong. It wasn't a name she recognized, and the photo was blurred, like the camera hadn't wanted to capture the face. She refreshed the page. The headline stayed the same, but the body text shifted. Not dramatically, just a sentence here and there, as if someone had edited it. 2 teens fell. She refreshed again. 3 teens. Another refresh. 4 teens. Names began appearing at the bottom of the article in a neat list, like credits at the end of a movie. Each refresh added one more. Some names were strangers. Some were familiar. People who had moved away. People who had vanished from school quietly, their desks cleaned out without ceremony. The last refresh added the name that stopped her breathing: Daniel Harper. But next to his name was a date 15 years ago. Daniel wasn't 15 years old. Daniel wasn't even alive 15 years ago. She stared at the screen until her eyes burned. Then she did what grief forces people to do, something brave and stupid. She went to the park. Not at night, not in the dramatic darkness everyone warned you about. She went at dusk, when the sky was still faintly blue and the world hadn't fully surrendered to shadows. She told herself daylight meant safety. But the moment she stepped through the bent gap in the fence, the air changed. It wasn't colder, it was thicker. Her breathing felt louder, like the park amplified the sound of being alive. The world outside the fence felt suddenly far away, muffled, as if the town itself had been covered with a blanket. Even the birds seemed to avoid the trees nearest the rides. And then she heard it. Music. Faint at first, barely more than a memory. A carousel tune slowed down until it sounded like a lullaby played by tired hands. The melody didn't float through the air, it crawled. It pressed itself into her ears like something desperate to be heard. She followed it. The carousel sat in the center of the park, surrounded by cracked pavement and weeds. Its canopy was stained with age. Painted smiles faded into something sadder. The tarp that had once covered it was gone. The carousel was turning slowly, smoothly, as if it had never stopped. Lights flickered around its edge, warm and yellow, making the surrounding darkness look deeper by contrast. The painted horses rose and fell in patient rhythm. Their glass eyes caught the light and made it look like they were watching. And every horse had a rider. Not mannequins, not props. People. Sitting perfectly upright, hands resting on poles, faces slack or smiling. Their clothes looked old, dusted with time. Some looked too young. Some looked like they'd been adults when they arrived. A few had bruises on their necks, dark rings like fingerprints. My sister took one step closer, and the music grew louder, Her stomach twisted as she scanned the riders, recognizing faces from missing posters, from old yearbooks, from town gossip. People who were supposed to be gone. Then she saw him. Daniel. He sat on a white horse near the center. The horse's paint strangely fresh compared to the others, like it had been repainted recently. Daniel's skin looked pale, but not decayed, preserved. His eyes were open and he was smiling. Not the wide, unnatural smile from nightmares. A gentle one, the kind of smile you give someone you've missed. My sister whispered his name. The carousel slowed. Not by mechanics, by attention. Every rider's head turned toward her at the exact same time. Joints moved too stiffly, like they hadn't been used in years. The music distorted, notes stretching until they sounded like they were being pulled apart. "You forgot," they said, all of them, in one voice. My sister shook her head, tears blurring her vision. I didn't forget." The rider's smiles widened slightly and the tune dropped lower, vibrating in her ribs. A memory surfaced with brutal clarity. She was 5 years old, holding someone's hand in this park. The smell of popcorn, the press of a crowd, the Ferris wheel glowing in the distance. She remembered laughing as the carousel started moving. Beside her was a boy, not Daniel, a boy with dark hair and a wide smile. She couldn't remember his name. She tried, she fought for it. But the moment she reached for it, pain flared behind her eyes, sharp and punishing, like the park was squeezing her brain. The carousel didn't just take people, it took the space they occupied in memory. Daniel stepped off the horse. His shoes hit the ground with a hollow sound, like the pavement beneath him was thinner than it should be. He walked toward her slowly, calmly, as if the park itself was carrying him forward. "You left," he said softly. His voice sounded like Daniel's, but it was too steady, too peaceful. Behind my sister, something began to hum. The Ferris wheel. She turned. It was moving again, slowly turning against the darkening sky. Cabin after cabin passed, and they were full, faces pressed against the bars, some crying silently, some staring blankly, some smiling with the same calm acceptance. At the very top was one cabin that remained empty, waiting. My sister backed away, trembling. Daniel lifted his hand, palm open like an invitation. "You can stay," he whispered. "It's easier if you stay." The riders began to slide off their horses, not falling, stepping down carefully like marionettes learning to walk. The wooden hooves of the carousel horses cracked against the pavement as they shifted, as if the ride itself wanted to leave its circle. My sister tried to run, but the air thickened again, turning her movements slow and heavy like she was pushing through water. The music grew louder and she realized the melody wasn't coming from the carousel, it was coming from inside her head. A voice threaded beneath the tune, gentle and ancient. "You were here before. You will be here again." She looked toward the exit. The fence gap was farther now, the park stretched wider. The path bent in subtle ways that led her back toward the carousel no matter which direction she tried to go. Daniel's smile didn't change. "You don't leave twice," he said. And in the empty cabin at the top of the Ferris wheel, the door slowly opened.